appreciate you joining us on this December 11th. So we're starting off the show with one of our favorite friends, Robin Garceau with Robin Garceau Interiors. Robin, how are you doing this afternoon?
Good, thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us. You are an interior design expert. You also work in the world of real estate. So we're very excited to have you here once again today. So it is the holiday season, and you have said that when people entertain, they often like to spruce up a room if they are entertaining. So what are some things that maybe people like to do if they're having people over for the holidays?
Well, sometimes when they're having people over for the holidays, they say to themselves, you know what, I want to paint this room, or I want to paint a certain space, or I want to paint a vanity and spruce up your bathroom. One of the things I find is when you're rushed, you have to stop and think about what you're doing.
Okay.
If you want to do it, great, no problem. You can do, you can paint a room in a day or two. It's not really that big of a deal. What the deal is choosing the correct color. And if you rush, you tend not to do that. And you don't want to have to redo. If you're going to spend the time and the effort and the energy and the money to do it once and do it right. So there are some things that I've always kind of told my clients that, okay, if you're going to do this yourself, these are the things you want to do.
Okay, so today we're going to help you get into the right frame of mind and give you some ideas and some advice. If you are hosting for the holidays and maybe you're thinking about sprucing up a room or something in your room and you're going to maybe dive into a painting project, Robin's going to help walk you through this and make sure that you do it right. So let's talk about this. I'm one of those people that if I'm maybe hosting or doing something, I'm like, oh, I have to fix this, and I want to make sure that this looks good. I'm totally one of those people. So I would totally just dive into a project really fast. And so you say one of the things that you want to do is take your time.
Right. And I'm not talking a lot of time. Primarily, if you just stop and spend a few hours and you focus on what you're doing, those few hours can make a huge difference. So, for instance, you may want to go online and start looking at inspiration. You may want to do some bold colors. You may do some soft colors. You may want to make your room like really dynamic, or you may want to calm it down. So the first thing you want to think about is how you want to feel when you're in that room. Do you want it to be a happy place? Do you want it to be lively? Do you want it to be calm? So that's the very first thing you want to do, and write it down. Write down how you want to feel when you walk in that room. So there'll be times like the holidays, you want to have a dynamic dining room, say, for instance. Think about, okay, say I want to paint all the walls like a deep blue. And you want to first, like I said, look for inspiration for that kind of color. You want to look at color palettes. You want to look at different lines of paint, because Benjamin Moore may be different than Sherwin-Williams, may be different from Farrow and Ball. So you want to look at the different lines of paint. You want to make sure that you get colors and get samples.
Okay.
And do that. But you really want to start thinking of, okay, what do I want to feel like when I walk in this room?
Okay, and you mentioned, you really want to look at the mood of the room. So maybe don't just jump in and say, oh, I like red right now because it's Christmas.
Right.
Or, I like whatever holiday it is. So don't just jump into painting because you feel like it. Really think about the mood of the room. Because the mood will set the tone, and
yes.
So think about it. And you also said look for some design inspiration. Where are places that, this is what you do for a living, so what are some places, if they're not consulting with a designer such as yourself, where are some places that people, if they're doing a project at home, can get inspiration from?
There's several sites. One of them is Houzz. It's HOUZZ.com. A lot of people use that. Some people don't know what it is, but it really is interesting. So when you go to Houzz, right up on the top there's a search engine, and you can type in blue room. and there'll be 10,000 photos of a blue room. You can and you want to say blue room in photos, and all the different blue rooms will come up. You can put in modern blue room. You can put in traditional blue room. You can put in blue molding, and things like that will come up. Another one is Pinterest. A lot of people love Pinterest.
Okay.
House and Pinterest to me are very, very different. So I tend to go on House a little bit more than I do on Pinterest. Either site you can save folders and save ideas, so that's always good. A lot of times too, I'll just Google blue room or blue molding and click on images, and a ton of stuff comes up. What you want to do then is save them to your desktop. You create a file on your desktop and you say paint colors, and just go with your gut reaction. Don't think about it too much when you're looking at pictures. Go with your gut reaction and say, oh, I like that one. Okay, I'm going to dump that in there. I'm going to dump that in there. Once you have about 20, 25 pictures, then you go back and you eliminate. Okay, I like this one better than that one. I like this better than that one. So then you may end up go towards a trend of what style you really do like. And you can be bold too. I mean, if you're going to do blue walls. I've seen blue walls with blue trim and blue moldings, and the whole thing is blue on blue, and it looks amazing. So you can get a little bold that way too. If you're on the coast, you may want to do a pale blue room with cream color moldings. You could do a red room. Your dining room could be bright red, and that's really striking as well. Do a really modern look.
I love all of these ideas, and it's making me want to dive in. But also, do you think that people can maybe get a little overambitious? They do it for the holidays, and then they might step back and regret it a little bit. So it's good to do the research ahead of time.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying you really think a lot about it before you dive in. So you don't have to spend hours looking for photographs. 20 minutes, a half hour, put a timetable on it, a time limit. And that way you don't feel as though, okay, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I've just spent 3 hours browsing and I really don't know. Quick, easy, half hour at the most, go with your gut reaction, throw some things in a file, and then it's process of elimination. From there, then you need to go to the paint stores.
Okay.
And go through their decks of paint or samples of paint.
Okay, and then that brings us to the next piece of advice you had, is you said to create samples on your wall. So does that mean you want to paint a bunch of paint samples on your wall, or what? How do we do this?
My suggestion to my clients is, instead of going around and just slapping up paint on all your different walls, get 11 by 14 poster board. It's got a bright white background, and you paint your samples on the poster board. Now, you want to do 2 or 3 of the same color, and then you want to do multiples of other colors as well. So if you say, you know what, I'm going to pick 3 colors, do 3 samples of each color. Then what you want to do is you want to take that poster board and put it directly up against your molding. You might want to put it directly on your ceiling, up to your ceiling. You may want to do it against your floor, and you want to do it where it peeks out from behind your window treatments.
Smart.
So if you put it right in the middle of your wall, you can't tell because you have something else that's taking away visually. You get confused. So you really want to put it directly up against your molding, or like I said, your ceiling, your floor, draperies. It's got to have an end point so you can really see what it's going to look like. And then that way, you take it down, you can move it, because different times of day, you have them throughout your room. Different times of day, it looks different. There are some paints that change color during the day. Benjamin Moore Color Stories, for instance. You're looking at one thing and it kind of appears very different when you're done. You really have to be able to set it aside for a day or so and really look at it.
Very interesting. Oh my goodness, what would we do without you? That's interesting. I'm thinking, if you painted your whole house different colors and then they all changed.
That
would be very stressful.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and you said you kind of mentioned this before, consider painting your moldings and walls the same color.
Mm-hmm. So when you have rooms that, well, there's two different ways I look at this. If you have a hallway or a very small room with, say, low ceilings, if you want to go a light tone, just do the whole thing, moldings and walls and possibly your ceiling, all the same color. So if you do like a really soft white, you can do a flat or a little bit more of like an eggshell on your wall. You can do a semi-gloss on your trim, and you can do a flat on your ceiling. And that way, even though there's the same color everywhere, they give you a little bit of a different light because of the different finishes you're using on each surface. So what happens is it creates a little bit more of a cohesive feel.
Oh, okay.
It's not so busy in your room because you don't have, if you have a small room, you don't have all of these lines. Or if you're going down a hallway and you feel like you have, 4 openings going down your hallway, now you don't have all these lines around your doors. Everything kind of blends together and it gives you a much more relaxing, cohesive feel. To do it in, say, a dining room or a living room, that's more impact. That's if you want to do, say, a color, and you do the same color on the moldings. You can do a pale blue wall, you can do a pale blue molding, you can do a light color on your ceiling. So with that, it's a little bit more of a modern, a little feel, it's a little more of a trend. And again, you could do different finishes. So you could also do a really high gloss on your wall. And that's interesting, but you have to be careful that your walls are in good shape, because otherwise you see every little imperfection.
Okay, especially if you're doing it yourself.
Mhm.
That's something you really need to be careful of.
Yes.
If it's your first go around painting,
You might want to stick with the flat on your walls.
maybe don't go for that gloss.
Yeah.
Okay, especially if you're doing it for the holidays.
Yes.
Take your time was her first piece of advice.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. All right, and so just coming down to our last maybe piece of advice from Robin, he said update a bathroom vanity with paint. So maybe skip the room and stick with something else, like just updating your vanity.
Right, and they're showing a lot on of do-it-yourself type of projects like that on YouTube and different shows. When you go in, you can paint vanities. Now, granted, there are different levels of painting vanities, and if you want a quick fix, just make sure you get a good primer and a good paint, and you can really make it look completely different by adding paint and new hardware. You do have to disassemble it, you do have to lay it out, you do have to take your time with it. But if you're going to do it, it looks great, and it's a quick update and a nice look for if you want to just have a little something new for the holidays. One thing I do suggest, though, if you take off the old hardware, take it with you when you go looking for new hardware.
That's right.
Because the new hardware, the European hardware that everybody loves, it's really modern European, well, their hardware may not match up to your holes, depending on how old your vanity is. So you really have to make sure you have the correct holes for your vanity. So I say just take it with you.
Super smart.
And that way you can either compare them, or you can measure exactly and make sure you get the same thing. And if you can buy one and go try it, that's even better.
You know, I've had friends restore, whether it's a small table or like a side end table or a dresser or something like that. I've had friends just, they feel like doing a project, or they want to, maybe make a small change within their home. I've had friends do really neat pieces.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of a cool thing that you can do, whether it takes a day or a couple days. I've seen some really neat pieces, whether it's online or some friends doing this kind of thing. So a little bit of paint can go a long way.
It really can. If you have a nice piece or an antique that somebody's given you, and older furniture is really well made. So if you can use that and you can upscale it a little bit, that's perfect for anything you want to do in your house, and especially the holidays, because it's fun and it can turn into a conversation piece. So yeah, just don't be too impulsive. You just have to be very careful and think it through. So in the holidays, everybody's in a rush, and sometimes that's not the best thing when you're talking about like something so permanent as paint.
Oh, very, very true. Because otherwise, you might end up painting after the holidays again.
Again, exactly.
Robin, before you go, you are doing something pretty cool revolving around design. Do you care to share that with us? Coming soon?
Oh, in January, I'll be attending design shows in Paris with other high-end designers and different people, and it's going to be wonderful, something new and exciting. Everybody tends to descend on Paris in January. It's a hot time of year for the design industry. So I'll be going there. I'll be looking at the Paris antique markets and some unusual furniture shows and lighting and just accessories and going to different seminars and things like that. So it's going to be really interesting, and I'm hoping to find some beautiful things out there, maybe take some things back with me.
Well, I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited for you to come back and tell us all about what you found and what you saw and kind of the latest trends. And I mean, anytime you can go to Paris and hang out,
yeah,
and work.
Definitely.
You'll be working, but
I will be working, but it will be wonderful. It's really nice, and the group of people we're going with is going to be just inspiring, totally inspiring.
Incredible. Well, I can't wait to hear about your trip.
Yes.
So hopefully, Robin Garceau helped you kind of relax and give you some inspiration if you are trying to spruce up a room or two with some paint this holiday season. So Robin, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. As always, lovely to see you, and happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays.
Wonderful. All right, everyone, please hang tight as we get set up for our next guest here on Go Local Live.